breaking news, the AFL has retrospectively cleared Dennis Banks of striking Carlton's David Rhys-Jones in Collingwood's Round 19 clash against Carlton in 1986. The AFL have determined that Rhys-Jones lowered himself and invited contact, which Banks was gracious enough to provide. Given that Rhys-Jones has now been deemed culpable, the AFL has asserted that Rhys-Jones had his prior opportunity and should have been penalised for holding the ball. We at the Rant can only say, good tackle, Dennis.
Welcome to Collingwood Rant. I'm Sly.
And I'm all about the winning no more Spook.
Spook.
Yes.
Heartbreak.
Wasn't it?
In the dying seconds for Blues fans as they lose tragically to Melbourne. But we also lost. Not so tragically, but...
How can we have lost? Haven't we won 112 games in a row?
And everything has been fixed at the club.
Is it?
Well, had been.
Well then, what's this? Is a blip on the radar?
It's a bit more than a blip.
Is it a speed hump on our way to the grand final? Is it the loss that we had to have?
Potentially could be.
Hey, let's get Tom Brown in here because he likes to ask the same question over and over again at the journalistic conferences, which I can understand why he probably feels a little bit out of sorts there. But do you think it's the loss that we had to have?
It could be.
What about...
I'll tell you in 6 weeks.
What about the loss that we had to have? Do you think it could be that?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Look at the lead up to this game. Flu ran through the club.
Yes, I believe that might have been a factor.
Yep. Adams was already out. The goal was a late withdrawal.
Yeah, that was well. I hung, no, not hung. I waved the white flag at that point.
Yeah,
as did many, I think.
And
our one and only avenue to clearances is not playing today.
And we talked about this earlier in the year, but it only takes a couple of players to be out, and then suddenly the depth is exposed, and it can all go to shit.
Yes.
From the onset, really struggled to generate any run on that. Is that a toy ground, Sydney?
Seriously,
you know what it reminds me of.
And look, it's not. I mean, we've played there obviously before, and we've won there before. But I mean, up until COVID, I don't think we played there. We played Homebush for about 400 years.
Well, actually, just to throw this in, I saw someone on Twitter mention we've only played two games in Melbourne at the MCG against Sydney since 2009 and 2013. Yeah. So it's constantly over there.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I mean, my first thought was like, okay, I'll use this as a get out of jail free card. When you watch the ball come out and about two kicks, it's and they're not two great kicks, they're just two fucking passes, and you're well inside 50 up there. It's like watching my kid play football on one of those kids' grounds.
Yeah, it
is so compressed. Now, I think that actually had a factor in the way that we played, and Fly mentioned in his presser as well. I don't know whether you saw that, Fly. Sly mentioned it in his presser as well, that we didn't play that smaller ground particularly well. Whereas fucking Sydney, we're bombing it massively long, having someone sit there, and they were just rebounding ridiculously fast. I think we sort of went and did those dinky little chip kicks way too much and just didn't respect the smallness.
Well, it's actually so. And we saw it really early with Pendlebury. Tried to cross it inboard and got intercepted. And it was like they didn't realise, hang on, this is a smaller ground, so players are closer to one another. The zones are much tighter.
Yep.
The ball still taking the same distance to travel, 20-metre kick, but there's players much closer who can intercept. And it just totally disrupted that setting up the runs type of game plan that we have.
And we just couldn't get free too. I mean, they were just like spiders and flies. They just pounced every opportunity. Because you've got to defend at the SCG, you've only got to take 2 steps and you're in the forward line.
It's a deplorable AFL venue.
And this is the other thing. I mean, again, it's not a get out of jail free thing, but seriously, in this fucking competition, could they get all the grounds the same size? Was it that difficult to achieve? So Cardinia Park's a different...
it's narrower.
Yeah.
Colonial are different too.
Colonial's, I think, the same size. It's based on the G1.
Is it? I thought it was a little bit narrower, but go on.
But there's also, what's the other one I'm thinking of? Over in Subiwaka or whatever it is. That's a lot wider ground. Why couldn't you have a standardised playing field? Did you go to soccer games and there's different size pitches?
I don't know.
Maybe there is.
Yeah, I don't mind that there's different size grounds because that harkens. Use the word harkens back to suburban grounds, and they're all a little bit different. And each club had an advantage playing on their suburban ground. But what I will say is SCG is way too small for professional football.
It's no good for TV viewing either because it's fucking shadowed most of the game. And you see, like, again, I think even the camera people were confused about the size of the ground because how many fucking close-ups do we have?
Oh, look, it's
like watching rugby scrums.
Yeah, I don't think Collingwood should play there in terms of...
Nah, let's piss it off.
I don't know, what's Homebush fit now? Because I heard that's been reduced.
Do they play there anymore?
I don't care. What's Sydney fit?
I don't know. There was a record crowd there on the weekend of
so it was about 21,000?
47,000 or something.
Oh, wow.
So I think its capacity is 47,123.
Yeah, look, one of my big... pet peeves is...
One of?
Yeah, there's millions. As we evolve, as the game evolves, players can run further, they can run for longer, they can kick further. So what they're actually doing is they're outgrowing the grounds. So it's like when you're a kid, you play in the backyard and you can kick the length of the yard. But at a certain point you go, I can kick too far. So you go to a park and start kicking it further. Players, the modern player, have outgrown shit little grounds like the SCG. They actually outgrown grounds like MCG now. Like people go, there's all this congestion and shit. You know how you fix it? You fix it by expanding the ground so they can't actually run all that distance. Because everyone now kicks like 50, 60 metres. Everyone can run 10 to 15 kilometres. They weren't doing that 30 years ago. SCG is way too small for the modern game. I know people say it's idiosyncratic, but I found that I haven't watched many games in Sydney.
No,
I
think that's why.
That's why.
I think that's why it stood out as well. That there's a glaring difference here in the style that we like to play. It's incapable of being executed on that ground.
Yeah.
I think I don't think that if by chance we end up playing Sydney up there in a final, which I think is one of the many possibilities, I don't think we'd fall into the same traps again. I think they would have learned a lot from that experience.
Well, this goes to another point. So watching this game, one of my disappointments was we really didn't seem to change much up until we threw Darcy Moore into the forward line for about 7 minutes to go. Because that was like the Malthouse Presley move.
When you're 5 goals down.
Yeah. And, and the problem wasn't actually the forward line. It was actually just getting the ball there because they just kept falling over. And they bombed a lot again too. And I would have really liked it for them to say, look, we don't have the goalie here. We don't have Adams there. Who's going to do this work in the midfield? And they actually started with Pendlebury in the midfield. Somehow he was the player of the week, and I thought he made a lot of errors in that for the most part.
Josh Dacos was the MVP.
Was he? You sure? I can't remember. I don't watch this. Josh Dacos deservedly was in there, but then we're playing these small midfielders again in the middle, like Josh was there at times. Side bottom was there, and it's like way too small against players, they've got. I mean, we looked decidedly smaller. So I really wish that and actually Maynard started in the middle, which I thought was a good move.
Didn't last there, though.
No, but I would have thought that's something they should have explored further. We didn't do it, and that's what disappointed me. As the game went on, it's like, what are you going to change here? Apparently nothing, until more goes up forward.
I think that we must have approached this with the cattle that we had and thought that tactically our plan was sound, but it was undone pretty quick. And we didn't seem to have something sitting in the sidelines of plan C. We went back to the plan A.
Yeah, well, as the game went on, did you really feel we were a chance of coming back as we had in previous weeks?
I think there was probably a period, I can't remember if it was late in the third or early in the fourth, we just had this massive run.
Yeah, that was in the third.
Yeah, and I think at that point, I started to feel this is exactly the way that they should be playing. I can't see it lasting, though, because... As I said, the blanketing that Sydney was doing was just too consistently good. See, I think they're the number one defensive side or something. Look, yeah. If they're playing the bulk of their games there and they have to reach across from one side of the ground to the other to stop you from moving, there's probably a good reason for it.
We got down to about 22 points. I mean, I think that's as close as we
21,
got.
21, I think.
Yeah, and the other thing too, I mean, Nick Dacos is tagged really early, tagged hard. Again, why did you change it up? Why didn't you move him to full forward?
Well, you did. They started him at... they moved him... Or Fly said in the presser that they moved him up forward and the tag went with him and then they put him up back because he wasn't getting any touches up forward. They wanted him to probably play the Degoe role, which I think's a bit... that was a bit rich. But when he went up back, the tag went with him as well, and he just nullified him. But he started to get a bit of the ball, but he was well down on his normal output.
But this is where I would have just done something totally different. So just go stand at full forward.
Go in the ruck.
No, go stand.
But I'm Blighty.
No, but this is where I'd like something lateral. Goes. You stand at full forward. Mason Cox, you go stand next to him, and just for a little bit, just block for him and block for each other and all that sort of shit. You're going to be probably taken out of the game, but it's actually going to make them think, what are they doing? What are they trying to do here? create some uncertainty in their minds. Just sort of throwing in the half forward and going to half back and all that. It's like, who gives a fuck?
Yeah, there was just something, aside from all those, and that could have made a difference, but there were just things in that game, like their kicking was appalling. Like, how many kicks fell to about 30 metres?
Well, this is the whole thing. They were very, very fumbly. I mean, Johnson, we've been raving about his marks. He dropped a few setters. I'm not picking on him specifically. I'm just using that as an exemplar of a lot of the errors that were made. There was lots of fumbling, terrible kicks, handballs that were going nowhere or at ankles and shit like that. It really, I don't make excuses on, but it really played out like a game of either guys who were tired, flat, fluey, or just couldn't get going in that shit ground, and obviously factoring Sydney's pressure and...
Yeah, I think there was an element of that. And the shit ground factor is obviously a fairly prevalent one. I mean, the amount of fucking times that they handballed to a teammate who was immediately under pressure was just farcical.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest, Sydney, look, they put the burners on as something chronic with the pressure. That was intense. But to keep falling into it, I mean, clearly, obviously you probably were that panicky that someone was about to hit you from behind, that you were dishing balls off. Fucking hell, you must have seen that there was a bloke running down on someone. That, it was just like, what's the lesser of two evils? Me getting belted or moving the ball forward and hopefully that they get out of it or they're in a better position or something. I think the pressure really got to them.
Yeah. No, look, I agree, but I mean, it was a game where just a lot didn't go right, and my biggest complaint is, what did you try to change it up? And the only significant change you really made was moving Moore to full forward. By which time, and look, I'm going to go back on this too. Moore was on Buddy at times. It's like, don't fucking put Moore on Buddy. Go put Crisp on Buddy, and then get Moore to play the intercept, cutting him off. Why are you sacrificing your best defender in a nullifying role? He should be in the role, I've always said this, like Essendon used Dustin Fletcher, Hawthorn used Josh Gibson. They were the best defenders in those clubs, but they weren't used on the best forward. They were used in, like, intercept roles. And I just reckon they sort of set up wrong going into that game. And when they lost Adams and DeGoey, they really needed to do something different. It's a shame that there's no one in the reserves where they could have said, well, this guy, we can just bring him up for a couple of weeks and he can do it, like, if there was a Braden Sire or someone still on the list.
Callum Brown.
Well, look, Callum Brown played really well.
He did play admirably, I must say.
So, I mean, I actually got his stats now. 14 touches, 86% disposal efficiency, 3 inside 50s.
How long was he on for? Half a game?
Half a game. Yep. 170 metres gained in under half. And he played that one where he actually took the game on, did a couple of blind turns and all that. That was playing with more of the surety that he's shown in his first couple of years, and which got drilled out of him, or which he lost for whatever reason. And I'm not saying like he's the long-term answer, because we've always maintained he's probably too small, but he played a really good game.
He's probably scaled perfectly for the SCG,
he probably is, actually. That's a good point.
He could have been a ruckman there.
But on that performance, it was like, okay,
he's also battling for his career too. I think that would give you a little bit of
but it was great that, like,
motivation.
Prior to this, when he's battling for his career, he really looks nervous. This game, he actually looked like, no, I'm just going to play with flair and instinct. There was one little blind turn he did on the wing. It wasn't anything brilliant or anything like that, but instead of sort of the team thing, I've got to dish a handball out or whatever, or thinking 2 steps forward about what I've got to do next and then fucking up what you got to do immediately, he was playing like just on instinct. And he did that in his first year. I mean, people really criticised him. In his first year, he was really, really useful. Like, was not a world beater, but like when you looked at him, you go, oh, you got something there. You got sure hands. You feed it out well. Second season, he was okay, but started to come down, and they just kept playing him. And when he was out of form, they just kept fucking playing him. But it's a shame they didn't have a bigger body there. Jeremy Howe.
That was a game to forget, isn't it? He was probably directly responsible for about 4 goals, I think.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't a great performance at all.
Yeah, the person I was watching with made an interesting point that he thinks just over the course of the year, Howe's lost a step. So he's a step slower.
Well, he's 33 or 34 or something.
And he's had some bad leg injuries. He had a corky the other week. Don't know how much that's impacted him. I think he pulled up short after one heavy contest. But he looked at that and you were thinking, oh yeah, Dan McStay, he's not a bad option.
Collingwood 101. I think we all thought it.
Oh, well, no, being honest, like I was thinking in the year that he played like a guy who is
The thing that I think actually also started me thinking that McStay wasn't a bad idea too. Is that Reed and Buddy, they're big boys, just tore us a new one. And you're looking forward to next week where you're going to have McKay and Curnow probably being major threats. I just can't see how and more stopping them effectively. That you do need a big body.
No, they there. Really, and I don't know what the judgment on his career is, but they really need that Will Kelly to step up as the biggest body there. Now, whether he can do it or not, who knows? But in terms of what their list is right now, it's they've been punching above their weight. They've been getting how to do things. Even more is not really a gorilla, man-on-man type player. Roughhead was the perfect guy who did that. It was staying toe-to-toe. Yeah. That's the play they're really missing right now, outside of the inside mid.
The done, roughy, big boy types. Yep.
So, I don't know if Will Kelly, his form's been pretty solid in the VFL. I don't think Mistay is that either, playing that sort of role. I don't know if they've...
No, but I think it's almost like you mentally think it's a safety buffer. You're starting to see merit in that pursuit, even though I don't necessarily agree with it. Who else is going to be out there that's going to become available that's a big boy defender? Unless you do what you've been referring to a number of times, and you go and find one in the as a mature age player in the VFL. There must be plenty of them out there.
Do you think Grundy can play that sort of role?
No.
I meant when he's fit.
No.
Okay. What any final thoughts in this game? Because it really was. I mean, it's one where you just go, look, we're outplayed. A lot of things weren't going right.
I thought there was one tactic that was employed that almost bore fruit, which was
switching off the television.
No, which was making Hoskin Elliott look more like the traditional Invisible Man Hollywood style by having the bandages coming off to reveal the nothingness underneath. Geez, he copped a few. He surely must have had his nose busted and busted again. Yeah, you got to give him A for effort on. I think he spent probably about half the game off bleeding on the sidelines, but. Look, kudos to him for getting up and going back out.
Yeah, look, the biggest problem with this game, outside of the 19 things I've mentioned, is you lose those two guys. Adams will be good for 20 to 30 possessions regardless. Now, whether he burns them or not, who knows, but that's 20, 30 times where he's getting hands on it. The go he's shown his value. I mean, Mark Robinson says we should re-sign him. But then you get like this game where...
Did we cover that last week?
Yeah, where you're really exposed...
Because I want to get mad at it again.
Oh, we'll get mad anyway. But you really expose that youth underbelly where, Nick Dacos is held, Josh Dacos is good, but, Bianco was held, Hoskin Elliott didn't really do anything. So you had too many...
He bled a lot.
Yeah.
He bled for the club. He bled for the jumper. He bled on the jumper.
But you had too many guys who weren't providing input. Side bottom wasn't great.
No, and I think you said something before that Pendlebury was named as one of the best on, which potentially may be the case. Look, looking at the game, I thought the only people that really stood out was probably Josh Dacos, and I thought Murphy work down back was really good actually, yet again.
The other one that was sloppy back there was Claynor.
Sloppy, did you say?
Yeah, I didn't think it was great.
No,
I'm not singling him out because I've singled out 48 other players.
I think universally across the deck, they were pretty flat, except for those two that sort of stood out a little bit better.
When the other one too, I actually wanted to mention, sorry, I forgot, was Myercheck. Now, here's a question. Is he playing injured?
I think possibly.
Or do they not know how to make the Johnson-Myercheck partnership work? Because Johnson's now sort of playing the role Myercheck was originally.
Well, Mio traditionally used to run a bit more up the ground, but he just seems to be hanging around the goals a lot, which must add a little bit more to he's carrying something. Because he was out for, 1 week?
But they said he was really sore and struggling.
Yeah, I think it's certainly...
He did suffer a corky really early.
He doesn't seem to have the same ability at the moment. He's hampered by something, but they'll probably feel that they can manage it.
It's finals prospects, isn't it?
They'll feel they'll be able to manage it. No, I don't think it's a question of the two of them. I think it's more that there's something a little bit off with him at the moment.
Actually, the other one I'll mention for the second half was Coxie. I thought he was really good in competing.
Yeah, he showed a little bit more grunt again, get in the faces of others, which I like to see. And he took a couple of telling marks, but ultimately it was all for naught.
Sydney fans booing Jack Ginnivan. Well, first off, he got tackled high. But according to the commentary, he accentuated the contact.
I would suggest that there's probably 40,000 people wearing red hats there who have no idea what it is that they're looking at the best of times. So out of any team in this competition that was booing on that day, I'd take the least amount of offence coming in from Sydney.
I find it offensive.
Supporters.
You know, I find it really offensive. I don't like... I know there's a theatre in the game where you boo. When the guy's actually hurt and you're booing him, I find that really poor. But Sydney had a legend of the game in Adam Goods booed out of the game. And then the supporters are going, well, we'll just boo someone else now. Oh, so we'll boo someone like in retaliation now.
But also on that logic, we can only assume that all the Sydney people are racists.
Yeah, I don't think we're going there. No, but I'm just saying...
That's the logic of it.
No, but I'm saying...
That's what we've been told is the reason.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the logic...
People don't boo because they're upset with something. They boo because they're racist.
But the thing is, the logic is also booing is poor form. Now, you're booing at a guy who's injured, so is that just sportsmanship and theatre?
Yeah, I think probably in that respect it is poor. I don't get the whole booing thing at any rate.
Oh, I haven't done it since I was a kid, I imagine. But then the other thing too is...
I did it at Halloween once.
You look at, let's say, gargantuan fuckwits. Let's say they occupy like a seat in AFL 360. And they're saying, well, it's justified because he's invited it.
Where would you be without Robbo?
Is he the worst journalist?
I think it's a stretch to call him a journalist.
Is he the dumbest journalist in journalism today?
Well, it's hard to call him dumb, though, because he can untangle that dumb statement and make himself dumber and still feel like he's the smartest person in the room.
Oh, well, he apparently just apologise. I mean, this guy's got like a jacket now of offences. What? I actually, again, I don't watch AFL 360. Someone sent it to you, so I heard it as you were watching it. Jared Watley showed some accountability going, I feel bad about what we've done. And Rob goes, no, he's brought that on himself. You're a shit fucking person, mate.
He enjoyed it. He laughs about it, apparently. He thinks it's the greatest thing.
What else is
according to Robbo, the world according to Robbo.
I just found that really poor in regards to... I've said it the whole year. I've written things about it. They vilified the kid because no one else ducks. No one else tries to shrug a tackle. No one else lowers the knees. No one else tries to exploit the rules. For, 140 years this game's gone on. There's been thousands of players play. Jack Ginnivan is the first one to try and find loopholes in the tackling rules.
He's evil and must be destroyed.
He should be the villain in the next Star Wars trilogy. Get on that, J.J. Abrams.
Well, there's no offensive villains in Star Wars trilogies anymore.
Well, they call them the heroes now.
Are they?
Yeah. But it's seriously just shit that they've singled out this one guy when there's been tons of players who've done it, and they've pounded it, and even going on Sunday when you got that one tackle high, and they still had to say, well, he accentuated the contact. Well, mate, that's because he got his fucking head almost ripped off.
That's the thing. And look, yeah, we did talk about it, and so did everyone else, that letting players get away with this week in, week out means that they're going to come in a lot harder and try and rip his head off. You're actually endorsing it by not doing anything. And so when it happens and he gets a free, you get upset. Apparently you can't have it both ways.
The weakest in this whole fucking thing is the AFL. Because when Mason Redmond tried to rip off Ginnivan's head, the AFL should have reported and suspended him for 2 weeks and said, you're accentuating contact, but you've actually struck him. And if that's going to happen, you will get reported and fucking suspended. And they didn't do it. They actually came out and endorsed, no, the first time was signed, the first contact was signed.
It actually says in the rules that the head is sacrosanct, but there's an asterisk there that says...
This is unless you're Jack Ginnivan.
Except for Ginnivan's.
It's just, it's seriously shit. And like, Watley, I thought, was the only one so far that I know of who's actually shown genuine contrition. But I mean, you go back a few weeks, Ross Lyon's been saying it for a while. No, they've opened... it's just open slaver on this kid. Lee Matthews came out and fucking said it. He said, oh, that made me sick to watch that. He didn't get it free. And then you get fuckwits on Twitter going, oh, hang on. How can Lee say that? He hit Neville Bruns once. It's like, oh, you did the same thing. Because...
It's amazing how that people have actually played the game at that level, commentating about it being wrong, and yet people who talk shit...
No, you got to follow... You got to listen to Bob Merkin on Twitter, who's got his 3 followers. He's cheating. He's cheating. No one else does this. He shrugs his arm.
And that's Merkin.
Yeah, it's seriously, it really is poor. And I'm really pissed off with the fact that the AFL has mishandled this from the beginning, like they mishandled the goods booing, like they mishandled the Essendon drug supplement scandal. Anytime there's a big issue, they basically just fucking try and ignore it and hope people stop.
Oh, you saw it with the fucking Crips thing this week.
Oh, yeah.
That you can now bring your QC in there and successfully argue by talking endless shit at $4,000 a second for 5 hours until everyone falls asleep and then votes just to go home, that this guy didn't do anything wrong, and the AFL, they got the right to appeal and go, yeah, nah. We'll just tweak the rules a little bit more and she'll be right, mate.
And that's the fucking thing too, the logic. It's a football act. Well, like Maynard spoiled Lloyd in the pre-season and he got 2 weeks for making contact at the head. That was a football act. So what's your fucking logic?
There is no logic.
There's nothing. It just changes from week to week.
No, I think that's the key part.
Oh, I shouldn't even say changes week to week. Changes from game to game, quarter to quarter,
minute to minute.
It does. It really is poor. It's such a malleable, industry that no one stands for anything in the AFL. It's just, we're going to just tweak this. We don't like it this week. We did it too much. Let's lower it next week. Too many delivers, not enough hole in the ball. Whatever the fucking case. And I don't want, look, I'm not saying umpiring had anything to do with our loss, but fuck, some of those hole in the ball decisions they let through were just ludicrous. Where players just blatantly dropped the ball. The umpire was like right there. And as watching Carlton Melbourne too, I mean, Cripps, the amount of handoffs he did, it's like, fucking hell. Seriously, you're a shit organisation. You really are. You stand for nothing but just turning your other cheek and just hoping people stop criticising you. And why would you care? Because you get fuckwits in the media who just sensationalise bullshit like Robinson does.
And Merkin.
But he's not in the media, he's in the social media.
Still a fuckwit.
Playing Carlton.
I'm not looking forward to this. Can I be open about that?
Yeah, you can be open about that.
Yeah, I find it a little bit concerning. I mean, look, in some respects, to go back and look, what did we lose by? 27 points. We had no clearance plays, even though I think we did loosely come out on top in the clearances or something.
I think we came out in the centre clearances, but not just in stoppages in general.
It wasn't probably a bad effort to not get blown off the park. I think that was my early concern. It just looked like this probably could be a 10-plus goal loss. I mean, to their merit, they still fought at times, but they just had no answer to Sydney's onslaught. However, though, I think this is the reckoning part of the season at the same time too. Look, we performed exceptionally well against Melbourne, but Melbourne, fuck knows what they're about at the moment.
Look, I watched all the Melbourne-Carlton game. Melbourne that played against Carlton was nothing like the Melbourne that played against us in that first half.
No. It was they were just.
They looked off. They looked like they'd been deflated by losing.
They fluked a win really at the end. They
didn't deserve to win. Carlton deserved to win. Carlton played really well. I'll give them credits. They played really well.
Yeah. But coming now into like games that matter type things, I think these games matter just as much to us. And we didn't execute. I'm just not sure how it's going to go on Sunday. We're guaranteed a finals berth. Carlton are battling for one. Depending on how the results go, they may know before our game that they're guaranteed. But they've got a lot to fight for, and I think they've got elements of. And I don't think DeGoey will play this week as much as they'll talk. I think they want to keep him for a finals tilt. We could be exposed again this week with just not the right cattle being there, and that it doesn't. As you said before, it doesn't bring us down a little bit. It generally brings us down a fair bit.
Yeah.
We could be exposed and we could get embarrassed on Sunday.
You're a little bit worried that
we could lose by 10 goals.
Jeez. You're a little bit worried by the fact that we don't seem to bring our A game until really challenged. Not even just challenged, until we're exceeded, and it's like, oh shit, we're going to try and pull this in.
Yeah, I think and look, it's been working obviously, but the risk is also too you can't win games by a kick and a half every week. At some point, you've got to put the foot down and demonstrate that your self-belief is capable of demolishing something.
Well, you look at I think they compared us to Richmond, who's lost most of their close ones. I mean, we've been good, but also been lucky to win. You think if we went to by the law of averages and only won 4 or 5 of those rather than 8 or 9 of them, would be down in that pack with Richmond and those guys battling out for the 8th. So that's more an accurate reflection of.
I think that's probably it. And look, I'll happily take a win on Sunday and a double shot, just for the experience of the whole occasion. I just don't think. Probably we'll win, and I think we'll probably end up being where we deserve to be, which is
runners up.
No, it's inevitably where we end up. That we're probably we were good to get into the 4. I don't think we're a top 4 side. We certainly deserve to be in the 8 this year, and that's where we'll probably finish. If we finish 6th, I think that's probably still a good result in the scheme of things. But it's all about you're going to have to build on this next year.
Look, the one thing I will say in relation to another top 4 side, I don't think the other 3 sides in the top 4 at the moment are the top 4 sides either. They're just everyone's been so spasmodic, barge along.
So how many wins we had for the year?
What, 15?
15?
15, yeah.
Surely that in most years
years that you get about a 4th.
Which is, you look at it from that perspective, that's not a bad result, but that's just how tight the 8 is too. Yeah, the fact that not Brisbane Bulldogs can get back in, is incredible.
Well,
it's that tight at that level.
It probably really is an endorsement of the 5 years Buckley put into getting us there.
Should we go to the Heath Shaw footage?
That would be funny. But I mean, look, to be in fairness to Bucks, 15 wins over 5 years, 3 wins a year. That's pretty much what he put into this. So your tip?
Blues by 10 goals.
Fuck it. I'm going to go Collingwood by 24 points.
I'll take your tip every day of the week.
Okay. Anyway, any last thoughts on anything?
No, but, if you're listening, Collingwood, and I'm sure they'll probably play this at the team meeting this week. I think they do it every week. Why wouldn't you?
They didn't do it last week.
Didn't they?
No.
That could be why they lost.
Yeah.
But just go out and smash the fuckers.
Oh, can't argue with that. We'll be back next week.
Later. Hopefully smiling.
Yeah. Later.
Bye.